The latter half of the 20th century was shaped by numerous technological and political developments. Among them, few objects achieved the global recognition and influence of the aftermath Kalashnikov model of 1947. More commonly known as the AK-47, its silhouette became an unmistakable symbol, a firearm that would define conflicts and armies for generations to come. The story of its creation is not one of a single moment of inspiration, but a response to the specific military realities faced by the Soviet Union in the aftermath of the world's most devastating war. In the wake of World War II, the Soviet Military Command undertook a thorough analysis of its combat experiences. The Red Army had faced the German Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front in a conflict of unprecedented scale and intensity. Soviet strategists observed that most infantry engagements occurred at relatively short ranges, typically within 300 to 400 meters. The standard-issue bolt-action Mosin-Nagant rifle, while powerful and accurate at long distances, was slow to fire and cumbersome in close-quarters combat. Submachine guns like the PPSH-41 offered a high volume of fire, but they used pistol cartridges that lacked the power and effective range for open-field engagements. There was a clear and urgent need for a new type of individual weapon. The military required a firearm that could bridge the gap between the full-power battle rifle and the short-range submachine gun. It needed to be selective fire, capable of both semi-automatic and fully automatic modes, and chambered for an intermediate cartridge. This new doctrine demanded a weapon that could be issued to every soldier, providing a significant increase in the firepower of a standard infantry squad. The lessons learned in the urban ruins of Stalingrad and the vast plains of Kursk dictated the requirements for the next generation of Soviet small arms. The weapon had to be effective, but more importantly, it had to be suitable for a massive conscript army. Central to the development of this new weapon was a man named Mikhail Timofeyevich Kalashnikov. Born in 1919 to a peasant family in the Altai region of Siberia, Kalashnikov's early life was marked by hardship. He demonstrated a natural aptitude for mechanics and engineering from a young age. Drafted into the Red Army in 1938, he served as a tank mechanic and later a tank commander. His inventive mind was already at work, designing improvements for tank tracks and a device for counting. The crucible of war would profoundly alter the course of his life. In October 1941, during the Battle of Bryansk, Senior Sergeant Kalashnikov was severely wounded in the shoulder. While recovering in a hospital, he listened to the complaints of his fellow wounded soldiers. They spoke of the shortcomings of their issued rifles and the effectiveness of German automatic weapons. It was during this period of convalescence that Kalashnikov conceived the idea of designing a new, more effective automatic weapon for the Soviet soldier. His initial design for a submachine gun, though not adopted for service, showed considerable promise and caught the attention of military officials. He was subsequently reassigned to a small arms design bureau, where he could dedicate his full attention to weapons development. The design competition for a new assault rifle was guided by a clear and uncompromising philosophy. The weapon had to be, above all else, simple. It needed to be easily understood, operated, and maintained by soldiers with minimal training and varying levels of education. Every component had to serve a purpose, with no unnecessary complexity. The second core principle was reliability. The firearm had to function flawlessly in the harshest conditions imaginable, from the frozen mud of a winter thaw to the dust storms of Central Asia. It had to withstand neglect and abuse that would cause more sophisticated mechanisms to fail. Finally, the design had to be optimized for mass production. The Soviet Union required a weapon that could be manufactured in the millions, using established industrial techniques and readily available materials. This meant relying on stamped steel components where possible, minimizing the need for complex and time-consuming milling operations. The elegance of the design would not be found in fine craftsmanship or tight tolerances, but in its rugged, practical, and efficient construction. These three goals, simplicity, reliability, and ease of mass production, formed the foundation upon which the future AK-47 would be built. Kalashnikov and his team began the arduous process of turning these principles into a functioning firearm. The development was part of a state-sponsored competition that began in 1945, pitting various design bureaus against one another. A key element was the new 7.62 x 39mm intermediate cartridge, developed by N.M. Lazarov and B. Semin in 1943. This cartridge provided the necessary balance of power, range, and manageable recoil that the military doctrine required. Kalashnikov's initial prototype, the AK-46, was submitted for trials in 1946. It featured a separate upper and lower receiver and a non-reciprocating, charging handle on the left side. While it performed adequately, the trials revealed several areas for improvement. Other designs, notably those by rivals like Bolkina and Dementiev, also showed promise. Following the initial trials, Kalashnikov, with the help of his assistant designer Alexander Zaitsev, undertook a significant redesign. Drawing inspiration from various successful firearm mechanisms, he incorporated a long-stroke gas piston system similar to that of his own earlier carbine design. The rotating bolt was influenced by the American M1 Garand, but simplified. Crucially, the receiver was redesigned into a single, sturdy unit with a large top cover for easy access to the internal components. This revised prototype, the AK-47, was submitted for a second round of grueling trials in 1947. It was subjected to extreme tests. Being submerged in water, dragged through mud, and caked in sand, the design proved to be exceptionally robust and reliable, outperforming its competitors. Following its success in the competitive trials, the design was recommended for adoption. In 1949, the 7.62mm Avtomat Kalashnikov model of 1947 was officially accepted into service with the Soviet Armed Forces. The initial production models, known as the Type 1, featured a receiver made from a combination of a milled block and stamped steel sheet metal. This proved difficult to manufacture consistently, leading to a temporary shift to a fully milled steel receiver for the Type 2 and Type 3 variants. While heavier, the milled receiver was stronger and simpler to produce with the industrial technology of the time. The definitive version, the AKM Avtomat Kalashnikov Modernizirovanny, would later return to a more efficient stamped steel receiver in 1959. Becoming the most widely produced variant, the adoption of the AK-47 marked a fundamental shift in Soviet military equipment. It was a standardized weapon intended to replace not only the Mosin Nagant rifle, but also the various submachine guns in frontline service. The introduction of the AK-47 had a profound impact on Soviet infantry doctrine. For the first time, the standard infantry squad was equipped with a weapon that provided a high volume of controllable, automatic fire at effective combat ranges. The rifle's simplicity meant that training times could be reduced, a critical factor for a large conscript army. Its legendary reliability gave commanders confidence that their troops' weapons would function when needed, regardless of environmental conditions or maintenance standards. The battlefield role of the individual soldier was transformed, no longer just a rifleman delivering aimed, single shots. Every soldier now carried a weapon capable of providing suppressive fire. This decentralized firepower down to the lowest tactical level. Early Soviet doctrine emphasized massed infantry assaults, and the AK-47 was the ideal tool for such tactics, allowing advancing soldiers to lay down a wall of fire. Its presence fundamentally changed the calculus of infantry combat, creating a new standard for firepower and reliability that would influence military thinking and firearms design for the remainder of the century. The weapons journey from a hospital sketch to the standard arm of the Soviet military was complete. Following its official adoption by the Soviet Armed Forces in 1949, the Avtomat Kalashnikov model 1947, or AK-47, began a trajectory that would see it become one of the most recognizable and widespread firearms in modern history. The initial phase of its distribution was carefully managed, confined within the borders of the Soviet Union as a standard-issue infantry rifle. However, the geopolitical landscape of the Cold War would soon serve as the primary catalyst for its global proliferation, transforming a national weapon into a worldwide phenomenon. The ideological struggle between the Eastern and Western blocs created a demand for reliable, inexpensive, and easily maintainable military hardware. The Soviet Union, seeking to extend its influence and support aligned governments and revolutionary movements, the Cold War provided the strategic framework for the AK-47's dissemination beyond the Iron Curtain. As the Soviet Union sought to bolster its allies and counter Western influence, it began to supply the rifle, along with technical assistance and manufacturing licenses, to member states of the Warsaw Pact. Nations such as East Germany, Poland, Hungary, and Romania started producing their own domestic variants, each incorporating minor modifications but retaining the core design principles of Kalashnikov's original. This policy of licensed production was a strategic masterstroke, decentralizing manufacturing and ensuring a steady supply of weapons and ammunition across the entire Eastern Bloc. This network of production guaranteed that Allied armies were standardized, simplifying logistics and training across a vast geographical area. The rifle was not only a tool of war, but also a symbol of political and military alignment with Moscow, a tangible link in a chain of socialist states. Beyond the formal alliances of the Warsaw Pact, the AK-47 became a key component of Soviet foreign policy in the developing world. It was extensively supplied to anti-colonial movements, socialist governments, and guerrilla forces across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The rifle's inherent characteristics made it exceptionally well-suited for the asymmetric conflicts that defined this era. Its renowned reliability in harsh environments, from dense jungles to arid deserts, meant it could function with minimal maintenance. Its simplicity of operation allowed for rapid training of conscripts and irregular fighters who might have little to no prior experience with firearms. Consequently, the AK-47 became synonymous with wars of national liberation and revolutionary struggle, appearing in the hands of fighters in Vietnam, Angola, Mozambique, and Nicaragua. The Kremlin's distribution of the rifle was a pragmatic and effective means of projecting power. arming proxies to challenge Western interests without committing Soviet troops to direct conflict. This strategy cemented the AK-47's status as a global icon of insurgency. As the AK-47's design spread, it inevitably evolved. The original milled receiver of the Type 2 and Type 3 models was effective but costly and slow to manufacture. A significant development came with the introduction of the AKM Automat Kalashnikov Modernizirovanny in 1959. This modernized version featured a stamped sheet metal receiver, which dramatically reduced production time, cost, and overall weight. The AKM also incorporated a distinctive slanted muzzle brake to counteract muzzle climb during automatic fire, improving accuracy. It quickly became the new standard, and its production plans were shared even more widely than those of its predecessor. The development of variants did not stop there. The 1970s saw the introduction of the AK-47, which was the Soviet answer to the American M6. This new model chambered a smaller, higher velocity, 5.45 by 39 mm cartridge, intended to improve long-range accuracy and allow soldiers to carry more ammunition. The proliferation of the rifle, coupled with its distinct silhouette, gave rise to a powerful cultural and symbolic impact that transcended its military function. For many revolutionary movements, the AK-47 became a symbol of resistance against oppression and colonial power. It was featured on national flags, such as that of Mozambique, and on the emblems of political organizations like Hezbollah. Its image was woven into the fabric of popular culture, appearing in films, music, and art as a shorthand for rebellion, conflict, and anti-establishment sentiment. This symbolism was a double-edged sword. While it represented liberation to some, it signified violence, instability, and terror to others. The rifle's ubiquity in post-colonial conflicts and civil wars meant that it also became associated with child soldiers, failed states, and protracted humanitarian crises. Its visual identity became so potent that the outline of the weapon alone could evoke a complex and often contradictory set of ideas about power, freedom, and destruction, depending entirely on the observer's perspective and historical context. The fundamental reason the AK-47's design has endured for over 7 decades lies in its perfect alignment with the realities of modern warfare, particularly for less developed nations and non-state actors. Its design philosophy prioritized reliability and ease of use above all else. Mikhail Kalashnikov designed the rifle with loose tolerances between its moving parts, a feature that allows it to function even when fouled with dirt, sand, or mud. This overgassed system, while contributing to recoil, forcefully cycles the action, clearing potential obstructions. The rifle can be field stripped in under a minute without any specialized tools, and its simple, intuitive controls a large safety and fire selector lever. A curved magazine and robust iron sights make it easy for a novice to learn. Furthermore, the sheer scale of its production has made it both affordable and universally available. With estimates of over 100 million units produced globally, the AK-47 and its derivatives are fixtures in nearly every conflict zone. This combination of ruggedness, simplicity, and availability created a self-perpetuating cycle, ensuring its continued dominance on the battlefield long after more technologically advanced rifles were introduced. In the 21st century, the AK-47 and its numerous variants continue to play a significant role in armed conflicts around the globe, while major military powers have largely transitioned to more modern assault rifle platforms. The Kalashnikov remains the standard-issue weapon for dozens of national armies and is the firearm of choice for insurgents, militias, and criminal organizations. Its presence defines the tactical landscape of contemporary asymmetric warfare. The historical significance of the rifle is therefore immense and multifaceted. It is a product of Soviet industrial design, an instrument of Cold War geopolitics, a symbol of revolutionary struggle, and an enduring tool of violence. Its legacy is not merely one of technical innovation but is deeply intertwined with the political and social upheavals of the last half-century. The story of the AK-47 is a stark illustration of how a single piece of technology can shape the course of history, arming ideologies and leaving an indelible mark on the world. Reflecting on its journey from a Soviet factory floor to battlefields across the planet, the AK-47 occupies a unique and somber place in history. Its global spread was a direct consequence of the ideological divisions of the 20th century, and its continued prevalence speaks to the enduring nature of armed conflict. The rifle itself is a neutral object, a mechanical assembly of steel and wood, yet its impact has been profoundly shaped by the human hands that have wielded it. Understanding the history of the AK-47 is not simply to study a firearm, but to examine the forces of politics, revolution, and warfare that have defined the modern era. It stands as a testament to a design that achieved a rare and brutal form of perfection, becoming an inseparable part of the narrative of recent human history.